All right, so you guys sent in some diner stories, and wow, they are really something intriguing and unsettling all at the same time. It's like a whole world of those like late night encounters and roadside chills, you know? And I am definitely ready to dive in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at specifically three horrifying true diner horror stories. And I'm thinking, people are interested in this stuff because, well, maybe they're big into true crime, or maybe they just, love diners.
Right.
Or maybe they're just curious about that, like, darker side of everyday life. You know what I mean?
I get it. And what's really captivating about these stories is that they take place in locations that we consider, well, familiar, safe
Entirely.
diners,
Yeah.
especially those like classic roadside places. They often evoke a sense of like, nostalgia and comfort.
Exactly. It's like warm lighting, right?
Yeah.
And the sizzling burgers and that friendly chatter in the background.
Yeah.
But then, like, when these familiar settings become the backdrop for creepy encounters,
Oh,
it just, like, really amplifies the unsettling feeling, right? It's like someone just pulled the rug out from under you.
exactly. It disrupts your expectations. That's what makes these
Mhm.
stories so, effective.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the diner itself, right? It's also the time of day, the isolation they often depict.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Late nights, quiet highways. It's like you're on the fringes of civilization.
Oh, for sure. That sense of isolation, it's so strong in that first story, the one about the flat tire in Washington State.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So Kathy, the narrator, she's alone at the diner, right?
Yeah.
And then this guy, Nolan, he's super friendly, just starts, like, chatting her up.
And that detail about Washington State.
Yeah.
Being known for its, like, reserved people,
Yes.
that's what makes it even creepier, right?
Yeah.
His, chattiness just feels out of place, like a red flag in a sea of, like, social norms.
Exactly. Like, he's deliberately trying to break down those barriers, which can be kind of disarming and unsettling. And then remember, that unexplained car in the parking lot, just sitting there, no one inside. It's
Yeah.
like a small detail, but it adds to that feeling of unease, like someone's watching.
Classic suspense building.
Mm.
You introduce an element that's just slightly off. It primes your brain for a threat, even if you don't know why you're feeling uneasy. And of course, the flat tire.
Oh, that flat tire. And it happens on a deserted highway just when she's at her most vulnerable. And guess who shows up? Seemingly out of nowhere,
Nolan.
Nolan, the friendly guy from the diner.
And now all of a sudden he's wearing gloves.
The glove.
It completely changes how we see him. It implies premeditation. Like he was trying to avoid leaving fingerprint.
Like he was waiting for this opportunity, which feeds into like a very primal fear, especially for women, right?
Oh, yeah.
Being stranded, being vulnerable at the mercy of a potential predator.
Exactly. It plays on our trust in social cues. We're taught to believe that kindness equals safety, which predators can exploit. It's a scary reminder to be careful, even when someone seems friendly, especially in those vulnerable situations.
Right. But Kathy, she's smart. She calls 911, pretends she's waiting for her boyfriend,
Oh, smart.
and even uses coded language to let the operator know what's happening.
Wow, thinking fast under pressure.
Mhm.
That speaks volumes about the power of trusting your gut and having a plan, just in case.
It shows that even when things are scary, we can be strong, resourceful. But hold on, because the story doesn't end there. He smashes her window.
Oh, gosh.
A moment of pure terror, but thankfully she had already told the operator where she was.
So important to be aware of your surroundings. Knowing your location, being able to give that information quickly, it can be life-saving.
No doubt. But here's the unsettling part. They never catch Nolan. He just disappears. It leaves you with this lingering unease.
That unresolved threat, it makes the story stick with you, makes you question your own sense of safety, and wonder if you would react as well in that situation.
Okay, let's move on to the second story. The one at the amusement park. This guy with a really intense stare keeps showing up wherever Ben, our narrator, goes. Classic stalker behavior. It starts with those seemingly harmless encounters, and then it gradually escalates into something more,
Sinister.
yeah.
It's interesting how stalkers operate, right? They're in plain sight, using these subtle tactics to test boundaries. See how the victim reacts. The first encounter, he asks about the bathroom in a hushed tone. Seems innocent, almost shy, but that repeated eye contact, the lingering gaze, it hints at something more, something obsessive.
And Ben even mentions feeling creeped out, but his coworker just dismisses it.
Yeah.
Which is so important because it shows how often we ignore our gut feelings, especially when others don't validate our concerns.
It's a dangerous trap, right? We're taught to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's crucial to trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Your intuition is picking up on things your conscious mind misses.
Right. And it's not a one-time thing. Ben sees him again at a diner later that night. And then, this is where it gets really creepy. He sees him outside his bedroom window.
Oh my gosh. That escalation. It's chilling. It shows it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
The stalker is intentionally inserting himself into Ben's life, eroding his sense of safety and privacy. And what's really disturbing is that violation of personal space appearing at Ben's home, the place where we should feel safest.
Ben thankfully quit his job and hasn't seen him since. I bet that's a huge relief. But it's a stark reminder that these things can happen anywhere, even in places we think are safe and fun.
Absolutely. It shatters that illusion of safety.
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance of being vigilant, paying attention to those who make you feel uneasy, and reporting anything suspicious, even if it seems small at first.
So we have two stories, both about unsettling encounters with strangers. Ready for the third one? This one has twists and turns that'll make you think twice about answering your door late at night.
Let's hear it.
That third story really got to me, you know, the one with Beth and the strange couple at the diner.
Yeah, it shows how predators can be so manipulative, you know.
It's true.
They can really use social norms to seem harmless. Remember, Beth didn't think they were a threat at first because, well, the older man was with a younger woman.
Right, it's like having a woman there makes it all okay.
Right.
Which is crazy because it's such a dangerous assumption.
It's like a camouflage, you know.
Totally.
Using someone who seems innocent to disarm potential victims. And it plays into our biases about gender, who we see as dangerous.
It's true.
This tactic can be so effective, especially, you know, in public where we're supposed to be polite, not jump to conclusions about people.
And you look closely, the red flags are there.
Yeah.
Like when the man asks if Beth lives alone, it sounds so sinister now.
Doesn't it?
Like he's gathering intel, seeing how vulnerable she is.
Exactly. He's trying to get information he can use against her later. And notice how he phrases it. Do you live alone?
It's so subtle.
He's not directly asking about her living situation, so it seems less intrusive, right?
Right.
And then, of course, things escalate. Late at night, there's pounding at her door. The young woman's begging to be let in, saying she's running from a dangerous man.
It's a classic manipulation.
Totally appealing to Beth's empathy. You know,
Exactly.
the woman's a damsel in distress. Triggers that natural instinct to help. And look at the timing. Late at night, when people are asleep.
When no one can help.
They're using surprise and isolation to their advantage.
It's terrifying.
But Beth's gut instinct kicks in. She recognizes the woman from the diner. Realizes she was with the man who was asking all those questions before.
That moment when she connects the dots.
Powerful.
So powerful.
It shows how important intuition is. That feeling that something's wrong, even if you can't explain it.
And as she's hesitating, the man shows up, and the young woman starts screaming at him to go away like she's trying to warn Beth.
Interesting detail, right? It suggests there's more going on between them. Maybe she's being coerced or manipulated. Is she a willing accomplice, or is she a victim too? Adds another layer to the story.
So creepy. But Beth, she does the right thing. Slams the door, locks it.
Her self-preservation kicks in. In a situation like that, trusting your gut, taking action, it can make all the difference.
Then she realizes she's alone in the building. All the other tenants are away.
Isolated.
Utterly alone. And then, knock on the back door. She demands to know who it is. Silence. And then, your blood on me.
Oh my God, that line. Pure nightmare fuel. It's a statement, a promise of violence. So personal and unsettling. The way he says, your blood on me, it implies ownership. Like he's marking her.
It's like they're trying to break her, you know, psychologically.
Yeah.
Instilling that sense of dread and helplessness.
And then he uses her name. Thanks for the service, Beth. That's what makes it so terrifying.
So personal.
It's not just a threat, it's targeted. She's been singled out.
It violates everything. Her space, her security, her identity. No wonder she moved.
Absolutely. Moving can be a way to regain control after something like that.
Yeah.
To create distance from the trauma and start to heal.
So we have these three stories, all unsettling, and they all involve strangers.
Right. And they play on a very primal fear, you know?
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown. Anyone could be a threat.
It makes you question who you can trust, even in places that seem safe.
We're constantly interacting with people we don't know.
It's true.
And while most of those interactions are fine, there's always that risk, that awareness that we can never truly know someone's intentions.
It's a tough balance, right? Being cautious, but not letting fear control you.
Exactly. It's about finding that middle ground.
You can be vigilant without living in fear.
Yes. And one thing that's interesting, all three stories mention food.
Oh, yeah.
French toast,
Yeah.
cheeseburgers, diner food, you know.
Yeah, what do you think that means?
Maybe it's a way for the narrators to ground themselves, find comfort in something familiar.
Like a reminder that life goes on, even when things are scary.
Maybe, or maybe it's there to create a contrast, to highlight how out of place these encounters are.
That's a good point. It's like they're using food, something we all do, to emphasize how unsettling these events are.
And let's not forget about diners themselves, right? They're seen as safe havens, especially late at night.
Totally.
They're open when everything else is closed, offering a warm meal and a sense of community.
They're like a little slice of society, all kinds of people coming together.
And that's what makes these stories even creepier. They violate that sense of safety we associate with diners. It's like a reminder that danger can be anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. It's a sobering thought.
It is. So where do we go from here? How do we deal with this unease? We want to live freely, but without being afraid.
That's a great question. And it's something we should explore more. We should dive into the psychological impact of these encounters, talk about how to deal with anxiety, and look at how people overcome these challenges.
These stories really stick with you, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
would I be able to react as quickly as Kathy or Ben or Beth in those situations?
I think it's totally normal to feel that way. They touch on that fear of the unknown, right? That feeling of danger could be anywhere,
Yeah.
even in places we think are safe. And it's not just the events, it's that unsettling feeling they leave you with.
Like a ripple effect, yeah. Makes you see the world differently, more cautious, I guess.
I think it's important to acknowledge those feelings. It's okay to feel uneasy or anxious. Pushing those emotions down doesn't help.
So how do we deal with that? How do we feel safe again without, letting fear control us?
Perspective.
Hmm.
Those stories, as scary as they are,
Yeah.
they're not that common. Most of the time, when we interact with strangers, totally harmless. We don't want to see danger everywhere, become suspicious of everyone.
Right. We can't live in fear, but we can't be naive either. It's a tough balance.
It's about finding that middle ground. Vigilance without letting fear run your life.
So what can we actually do to feel safer in our everyday lives? Any specific things?
Absolutely. Situational awareness is huge. Pay attention to your surroundings, be mindful of who's around, and trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And if you can, avoid being alone in isolated places, especially at night.
Not about being paranoid, just aware, taking precautions.
Exactly. And setting boundaries. Verbally, non-verbally, if someone's making you uncomfortable, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Say no, step back, leave the situation.
It's about trusting your instincts, taking action, even if it's awkward.
Yes. And if someone crosses a line, report it to a friend, a family member, the police. You're not alone.
It's good to have a plan, just in case.
Definitely. Who to call, a meeting place with loved ones, maybe even knowing some self-defense. Those things give you a sense of control, of preparedness.
Being proactive, not reactive. Equipping ourselves to handle tough situations.
And self-care. Do things you enjoy, connect with loved ones, seek professional help if needed.
To manage the anxiety and stress.
Exactly. It's about building resilience.
Mentally, emotionally, so we can face challenges without being overwhelmed.
Despite how unsettling these stories are, the narrators are so resilient. They faced terrifying situations, but they took action to protect themselves.
It's inspiring. It's easy to feel helpless after hearing stuff like this. But they remind us that we have power. We can take steps to be safe and get help.
And they turn their experiences into opportunities for growth, for learning, for helping others by sharing their stories. They didn't let fear win.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always hope. There's always the potential to heal, to find our way back to feeling safe and secure.
Well said. We've covered a lot, haven't we? The unsettling nature of these encounters, the psychology of fear, and what we can do to stay safe.
Before we go, I'd like to leave our listeners with a question. Do you think these stories are more unsettling because they happen in places like diners, those ordinary settings? Or is it a deeper fear, something we all share?
It really makes you think. Maybe it's the contrast, the familiar versus the unexpected, that disruption of normalcy. Or maybe it's something deeper, something that goes beyond location.
Definitely something to think about. And on that note, to all our listeners out there, stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, you're never truly alone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.